Okay, so today we're going deep, really deep, into something that, well, it affects all of us every single day. Mainstream media.
Yeah, its influence, how it can be used, to shape what we think. It's pretty powerful stuff.
And the thing is, you provided a ton of material on this, which is awesome. It's a lot to dig through, going all the way back, like, to the earliest ways humans communicated.
Yeah, from the very beginning, how did we share information, right?
Yeah.
To today with, well, the internet and everything. It's a huge story.
So our mission here is to pull out those key insights, right? How has media evolved? How have those in power, those who want to be in power, used it? What are the recurring themes here?
It's about giving you a clearer understanding of the forces at play. Because honestly, being aware of this stuff is more important now than ever.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. Before writing, before, the printing press or anything like that, we're talking about oral tradition.
Right. The original media, if you think about it, it was all about the spoken word. Elders, storytellers, they held so much power.
Because they controlled what information was shared.
Yeah.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
They were the ones passing down history, beliefs, values, everything. That's a huge responsibility.
And think about it. This wasn't just, in one place. This was how countless cultures across, well, centuries and across the globe shared knowledge.
But it wasn't a perfect system, right? I mean, think about the game telephone. Things get mixed up, details get lost.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oral traditions were very much open to, well, distortion. Sometimes it was unintentional. Memories fade, details get jumbled. But sometimes those changes, they were deliberate. To fit an agenda, maybe to make someone look better or worse.
And I guess there's no way to really fact check it, right? It's not like you can go back and listen to a recording.
Exactly. It's fascinating to think about, like, the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? Those are, these epic stories from ancient Greece. But who knows how many versions existed before they were finally written down.
It makes you realize how fluid information can be. Okay, so then comes writing. That seems like a huge shift, right?
Oh, yeah. Suddenly you can record information, make it more permanent. But here's the thing. Not everyone could read or write.
Oh, right. So it wasn't this big equalizer.
Not at all. In fact, it created a power imbalance. Those who could read and write, they had a real advantage, right? Yeah. They could control what was written, how it was interpreted. Think about religious texts, royal decrees, stuff like that.
It's like writing preserved information, but it also concentrated who had access to it.
Exactly. Yeah. And those in power, they were quick to realize the potential here. Religious institutions, they used texts to guide their followers, but also to, maintain authority. Same with rulers, using laws and orders to control things.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. The 15th century, we have a game changer. The printing press. This is where things really start to explode, right?
Gutenberg's invention, man, it revolutionized everything. Suddenly, it's not just monks painstakingly copying texts by hand. You could produce books, pamphlets, all sorts of stuff, so much faster and cheaper.
Which meant that, over time, more people learned to read, right? Because those materials were more available.
Exactly. And literacy rates went up. Ideas could spread so much faster. Like, think about the Reformation. Martin Luther, he used the printing press to challenge the Catholic Church. His ideas, printed in pamphlets, they reached a huge audience.
It's like the original going viral, right? Except with paper. And that's a great example of how, even back then, this ability to spread information could really disrupt things.
Totally. But, those in power, they caught on pretty quick, right? They saw that this technology could be used to push their own agendas just as effectively as it could be used against them.
So propaganda was born.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Governments and religious institutions, they were all over the printing press, using it for their own purposes. They even tried to censor certain ideas, to control what people could read. It's a whole new battleground.
And this leads to the rise of something we're all familiar with: newspapers.
Okay, so now we're getting into the 17th and 18th centuries, and we're starting to see dedicated sources for news and information.
Right, and these newspapers played a big role in shaping public opinion. They were platforms for discussing politics, social issues, all of that, and they contributed to, political movements.
The American Revolution, right, that's a classic example. We learned how newspapers were used to spread those revolutionary ideas and build support for independence. But, were they fair and balanced? I'm guessing not really.
Oh, no, not at all. Early newspapers, they were super partisan. They reflected the views of their owners, the political groups they supported. It was pretty biased, honestly.
That's interesting because it shows how, even as these new forms of media emerge, that potential for shaping narratives, it doesn't go away.
It just evolves. And honestly, that partisanship, That's something we still grapple with today. Okay, so we're moving into the 20th century, and things are about to get really interesting. We have the rise of radio, film, and then television. Talk about a media explosion.
Yeah, it's like boom, boom, boom. Each one of these was revolutionary in its own way. Let's start with radio, right? Suddenly, you could reach massive audiences instantly. Think about the impact during events like World War II, the Great Depression.
I was just thinking about like those fireside chats that FDR did, using radio to connect with the public during, some of the toughest times in American history.
It's brilliant. He understood the power of that medium. He built trust, got people on board with his policies. But of course, radio wasn't just used for good, right?
Right. Propaganda machine.
Oh, yeah. Totalitarian regimes use radio to spread their ideologies. And then you have the birth of, well, radio advertising. That was a whole other way to influence people.
So true. Then we have film. This wasn't just about delivering information. This was about storytelling on a whole new level.
The visuals, the narratives, the emotions. Film had this incredible power to captivate people, to shape their views of the world, to influence trends, everything. And of course, Hollywood became a thing.
Celebrity culture was born.
Exactly. But let's not forget about, well, the darker side. Propaganda films, for example. They were used during World War II to rally support, to demonize the enemy.
That's a good point. It's like film could be used for incredible good, but also to really manipulate people's perceptions.
Yeah, and it wasn't always intentional either. Sometimes those films, even if they were meant to be entertaining, they reinforced stereotypes, promoted certain viewpoints without even realizing it.
Okay, and then comes the big one. Television. It took everything that radio and film had, combined it, and then entered pretty much every home in America.
Television was the dominant medium for decades. It shaped how we saw political and social issues, it influenced what we bought, and it created, these shared experiences.
Like families gathering around the TV to watch the news or a show or, well, the moon landing.
It brought people together, but it also had this huge impact on public opinion. And of course, you can't forget about television advertising. That became a whole other beast.
I mean, it makes sense. You have this visual medium in people's homes with sound. It's super engaging.
And the coverage of the civil rights movement. Television played a huge role in raising awareness, in showing people the realities of injustice. It was a force for good in that sense.
But then you also have political campaigns using television to influence voters, right? Sometimes, well, with misleading messages.
For sure. So again, this potential for shaping narratives, for pushing agendas, it's still there.
Okay, so now we land in the digital age, which is where things get really, really complex. We have the internet, then social media. This feels like the biggest shift since the printing press, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The internet has transformed everything. Information sharing on a global scale, citizen journalism, the ability to connect with people all over the world. It's been, in many ways, incredibly democratizing.
It's hard to imagine life without it now.
Seriously. Think about the Arab Spring uprisings. Social media played a huge part in organizing those protests, in getting information out there.
But there's a dark side, right? Misinformation, cyberbullying, hate speech, all of that.
Yeah, the internet has given a platform to some pretty harmful stuff. And because information spreads so quickly, well, it can be hard to sort out what's true and what's not.
Social media in particular, it's become this primary source of news for a lot of people, hasn't it? But it's also where a lot of that misinformation spreads.
Exactly. And political campaigns, they're all over social media now, using it to target voters, to control the narrative. And then you have, influencers, targeted advertising, the whole thing.
It's so hard to escape it.
Right. And the algorithms, they're designed to keep you scrolling, to keep you engaged, which means they can also create these echo chambers where you only see information that confirms your existing biases.
And now we have AI-generated media, which adds another layer of complexity. Deepfakes, those are getting pretty good. It's becoming harder to tell what's real and what's not.
So the potential for manipulation, it's more sophisticated than ever before.
Okay, so we've gone through this whole history, from oral tradition to, AI. What are the key takeaways here? What should people really be thinking about?
So there are a few big things that stand out. First, the concentration of media ownership. It's a recurring theme, right? From who controls the stories that are told to, today with these huge media conglomerates. It raises questions about bias, about whose voices are heard and whose are silenced.
Right. The more control one entity has over the information that gets out there, the more potential for, manipulation, right?
Exactly. Then there's the issue of profit motives. The media is a business. And the need to make money can sometimes conflict with the commitment to being objective, to telling the truth.
I mean, it's a tough balance. You need to be financially sustainable, but you also need to maintain your integrity.
And that's a constant challenge.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's this overarching theme of shaping narratives, whether it's through propaganda, advertising, or just, the way stories are framed. Media has always been used to influence how we think, what we believe.
It's up this constant thread throughout history, isn't it?
Totally. And in today's world, it's more important than ever to be media literate, to be critical thinkers. We're bombarded with information from all sides, so we need to be able to assess its reliability, to understand the different perspectives, to identify those hidden agendas.
It's a lot to keep up with.
It is. And then finally, I think it's important to remember that media's impact, it's global. It crosses borders, it influences cultures, it shapes our norms, our values, our behaviors. It's a powerful force.
And it's like the world is so interconnected now, right? What happens in one place can ripple out and affect people everywhere.
Exactly. So to kind of sum up this whole deep dive, we've seen how media has evolved over thousands of years. From those earliest forms of storytelling to the complexities of the digital age, there's always been this potential for power, for shaping understanding. And it's something that affects all of us.
I think it's safe to say that everyone listening to this right now, they're consuming media in some form or another, whether it's social media, streaming services, whatever. So understanding this history, it gives you context, right? It helps you navigate the information landscape we live in.
Absolutely. And that's why this deep dive was so important. By seeing those recurring themes, those patterns, you can become a more informed consumer of information.
And that leads us to a final thought for everyone to consider. Given this long history, this constant evolution of media, what role do you play in shaping the information landscape of the future?
Yeah, what responsibility do you have to be critical, to be aware of those forces trying to influence you? It's a big question, and I think it's one worth pondering.
Definitely. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
This is DigitView.